the phantom bride of Montmorency. Falls, the roar of the waterfall drowns out everything, yet in its thunder there is something else, something human. A cry, sharp, desperate, breaking through the rush of water, echoing off the cliffs. You stand on the edge of Montmorency Falls, the spray wetting your face, and for a moment you swear you see her. A pale figure in white, her gown tattered, clinging to her body like soaked skin. Her veil sticks to her face, but through it, you glimpse her mouth opening wide in a scream that does not belong to the living. Locals say she was a bride, a girl who walked these cliffs centuries ago, her heart broken by war and betrayal. On the day of her wedding, her groom fell in battle, and in despair, she came to this place. Her gown still fresh, her flowers still in her hand, and threw herself into the white waters. But she did not vanish. She stayed, caught between the rocks, the spray, and the endless sound of her own drowning. And if you walk here at night, when the falls glow like a silver blade under the moon, you do not just hear water, you hear the sound of her last breath, stretching on forever. A man once told of crossing the bridge near the top of the falls. The night was windless, clear. Yet, halfway across, the air dropped cold. His breath fogged in front of his face, though it was mid, and then came the steps. He swore he heard a wet, dragging, the sound of shoes soaked through, moving behind him. He turned, and there she was. The bride, her head bowed, her dress dripping an endless trail of water. She did not walk, she dripped, and her eyes, when she raised her head, were not eyes at all. They were hollows, black sockets pouring streams of water, as though her drowning never ended. They say if she looks at you, you will dream of water. Not Hoostrein, not just rivers, but drowning, dream after dream of sinking, unable to breathe. And some who dreamed it too many nights never woke up. Their bodies were found in bed, lungs full of fluid, though they had never left their rooms. The bride does not just haunt the falls. She follows those who see her, attaches herself like a curse. Once you glimpse her, her sorrow seeps into your bones, and she will not let you go. There was a group of students once, drunk on ghost stories, who went to Montmorency Falls after midnight. They laughed at the tailies, called out for the bride to show herself. One girl in the group, recording on her phone, captured something none of them saw in the moment. Later, when they watched the video, her laughter died. Behind them, against the roar of the water, a faint figure hung in the mist pill, blurred, swaying. And then it moved closer. Frame by frame, the bride's face grew clearer, until her open mouth filled the screen. Wide, black, screaming. The girl who filmed it did not sleep again. Weeks later, she was found at the bottom of the falls, her limbs broken, her eyes wide open, as though she had thrown herself just as the bride once had. The most terrifying stories come from those who live nearby. They hear her cry above the roar, a thin, piercing wail carried on the mist. Sometimes, the sound does not fade. It circles houses, presses against windows, slips under doors, and then, inside, water begins to drip. From ceilings, from mirrors, from walls. No leak can be found, no pipe broken. It is her. The bride weeping into the rooms of those who hear her, leaving puddles at their bedsides, soaking their pillows in the night. A cab driver once said he picked up a woman near the falls. She was drenched, shivering, her veil clinging to her face. She asked him, in a voice like cracked ice, to take her to the church. He drove, his eyes flicking nervously to the rearview mirror. But when he reached the church doors and turned, the back seat was empty. Only water remained, soaking through the fabric, dripping onto the floorboards. He left the cab soon after, too afraid to drive the route again. Some say the most dangerous thing is to meet her gaze directly. Those who claim to have survived it say they were frozen in place, their hearts slamming like fists inside their chests. They describe the silence in that moment the falls muted. The night air gone just, the sound of her breathing, wet and ragged, right inside their ears. Then her mouth opens, impossibly wide, and from it pours the sound of rushing water. If you hear it too long, you will feel it filling your lungs, drowning you where you stand. One man swore. He staggered back, gasping, choking on air that had turned into water. before collapsing. When he woke, his clothes were soaked through, though he had not fallen into the river. The cliffs themselves seem cursed by her presence. Rock slids happen without warning, as though her anger shakes the earth. Tourists fall pulled by something unseen, their screams lost to the roar. Locals will not go near after dusk. They say if you do, if you linger at the edge or stand on the bridge when the mist rises, you might see a hand stretch out from the spray, fingers pale and swollen, nails torn from struggling. And if you are foolish enough to take that hand, to steady yourself, or to prove you fear nothing, she'll pull you with her into the white abyss, and no one will ever find your body. Even now, as you imagine standing there, you can hear it, the endless roar of Montmorency Falls. Louder, closer, but beneath it, threaded through the noise, is another sound. Softer, higher. A scream stretched thin, a wail that does not belong to water but to something trapped inside it. You might think it is only in your head, only suggestion. But if you listen too closely, too long, she will hear you too. And when the bride hears you, when she knows you have noticed her cry, say will come. She will climb from the mist, her gown heavy with centuries of water, her veil hiding the face that no longer belongs to the living, and she will stand just close enough that when her mouth opens, the next breath you take will not be air at all. Because once you have heard her scream, Montmorency Falls never lets you go. The Grey Watcher of Pluckley village, the first thing you notice in Pluckley is the silence. It is not the peace of a countryside night, not the comfort of quiet lanes and empty fields. It is an unnatural silence, the kind that presses against your ears, heavy, suffocating, as if something is holding its breath and waiting for you to do the same. And in that silence, in the corner of your eye, you see him, a tall figure cloaked in gray, standing perfectly still at the edge of the road, head slightly tilted, watching. Everyone in Kent knows Pluckley. It is called the most haunted village in England, a place where shadows outnumber the living. But the villagers never speak of him directly. They only lower their voices when night comes, bolt their windows, and glance over their shoulders as if expecting eyes to be on them. They are right to do so, because the Grey Watcher is always there, always waiting. People describe him differently, but one detail never changes. He does not move, he does not walk, he does not follow. He simply stands, and yet, no matter where you are, no matter which lane you take, you will find him waiting. Some swear he appears by the old churchyard, his cloak brushing the graves. Others see him at the Pinnock Bridge, his shape barely lit by the moonlight, framed by the mist that curls up from the water. And some unlucky ones find him right outside their windows, his faceless head tilted upward, watching from the shadows of the garden. There was once a man who dared to call him out. It was drunk staggering through Pluckley's crooked lanes at midnight, laughing at the legends. When he saw the figure ahead, he shouted, cursed, demanded that the ghosts come closer. But the Watcher did not move. He stood, still and patient, as the man stumbled forward, daring himself to approach. And then, when the drunkard was close enough to reach out his hand, the figure was gone, not walked away, not vanished into the mist. Gone, like the air itself had swallowed him. The man laughed nervously, tried to keep walking, but when he reached the next corner, the Watcher was there again. Closer this time, waiting. The man ran, heart pounding, until he reached his door and slammed it shut. He never drank again, never walked those lanes after dusk, because that night, when he finally looked in his mirror, he swore the Grey Watcher stood behind him. The villagers whisper that the Watcher is not a spirit like the others, not a lost soul, not a restless ghost. He is older, darker, something that does not belong to any single grave or any single death. He does not haunt one place. He haunts the entire village, bound not to earth or water but to the fear itself. The more you believe in him, the more you feel his eyes, the closer he comes. One woman described driving late at night, taking the road that skirts the woods. Her headlights caught movement, a flicker of gray. A man, tall, standing just beyond the trees. She slowed, thinking he might need help, but as her car crawled closer, her breath caught. Ad no face. Who's the smooth pale void where features should be? And yet she knew he was watching her. The weight of it pressed against her chest. She hit the gas, speeding through the lane. But when she dared glance in her rearview mirror, the back seat was not empty. For one terrible heartbeat, she saw the outline of the gray cloak right behind her head. The scream had swerved, nearly crashed into the ditch. But when she stopped, panting and trembling, the car was empty. The seat was soaked with dew, as though someone had sat there straight from the fog. Some say the Watcher is a remnant of an old sin, older than the village itself, a century of death, placed there to remind the living that they are never truly safe. He does not chase. He does not strike. He only watches, and in that watching, he steals something from you. Those who meet his gaze describe a sickness after a slow, draining, sleepless nights, shadows flickering at the edges of their rooms. It begins with the sense of being observed, always, even alone. Then comes the whispering, faint voices curling through the silence. Finally, the dreams. Standing in the lanes of Pluckley, the mist thick, the Watcher waiting. Each dream he is closer. Each dream his cloak brushes your skin, and when his faceless void finally touches yours in sleep, you do not wake. A boy once vanished this way. Locals recall he had been restless for weeks, complaining of nightmares. His parents found him sitting up in bed, eyes open, staring into the corner of the room where nothing stood. When they shook him, he blinked as if waking, but said nothing. Then one night, the bed was empty. The window was open, though it had been locked. They searched the woods, the lanes, every house. No trace was ever found. Only his shoes, left at the edge of the bridge, pointed toward the mist below. But the villagers knew he had not jumped. The Watcher had finally taken him. Travelers sometimes laugh at these stories until they come to Pluckley themselves, until they feel the silence wrap around their throats, until they walk the lanes at dusk and realize how narrow they are, how the mist curls in shapes that almost look like figures, how every turn seems to lead them back to the same place. And sooner or later, they see him, the tall shadow cloaked in gray, head bent, waiting. No one ever hears him arrive. One moment, you are alone. The next, he is there, at the corner of your vision, silent, patient. You will tell yourself it is just fog, who's to your mind. You will walk faster, refusing to look back. But deep down, you will know you were not alone. And when you reach your door, breathless, trembling, you may think you are safe. Until you glance at the window, until you see the outline of gray standing in your garden, unmoving, waiting for you to look too long. The silence in Pluckley is never empty. It is the silence of held breath, the silence of something watching. And once you hear it, once you feel it, once you glimpse that faceless figure on the lane, you will never truly escape. Because the Grey Watcher is not bound to the village. He is bound to you. The moment you see him, he belongs to you. And from that night on, no matter where you go, you will never again be unobserved.
I just love milk.
The demon of Bobby Mackey's music world, the stench of blood, never leaves that place. It seeps from the basement walls. It clings to the rotting floorboards. It lingers in the damp Kentucky air, no matter how many candles are lit, no matter how much bleach is poured. People say Bobby Mackey's music world is just a honky-tonk bar, a place for country songs and cheap beer. But those who have stepped inside know the truth. That building is a wound in the earth, and something ancient and hungry lives inside it. The basement is the heart of the terror, a concrete pit carved deep beneath the bar, its stones blackened by time and soaked in cruelty. Once, long before the music and the neon lights, it was the site of blood rituals. A slaughterhouse stood there, where animals were bled and gutted. But when the slaughterhouse closed, the pit remained, and men with darker appetites found use for it. They say sacrifices were made there. That Bodis, human Bodis, were thrown into the hole, offered to something nameless, something that answered. The stories begin the moment you step inside. The air grows heavy, like the press of unseen hands on your chest. Lights flicker, even when the wiring has been checked a dozen times. The jukebox plays by itself, sometimes old country songs, sometimes garbled static that twists into voices, and always, beneath the music, you hear the faint echo of screams distant, muffled, as though trapped in the walls. Carl Lawson was the first to speak openly about it. He lived above the bar for years, working as the caretaker. At night, he heard footsteps in the halls, the heavy tread of boots dragging across the wooden planks when no one else was there. Doors slammed on their own. Objects were hurled across the room with violent force. But worst of all was the basement. Carl said he could hear growling there, low and guttural, an animal sound but too deep to belong to anything human. He swore he saw shadows moving against the walls, shapes with horns, twisting and bending, reaching for him. One night, he tried to confront it. He went down alone, clutching a Bible, reciting prayers. The air turned freezing, his breath clouding in front of him, and then he felt its fingers, ice cold, closing around his neck. He was lifted off the ground, choking, gasping for air. He managed to scream, and when others rushed down, they found him alone, clutching his throat, livid red marks across his skin as if hands had tried to crush the life from him. Carl never truly escaped after that. He said the thing followed him, even when he left the building. It whispered in his ears, hissed in his dreams, telling him he belonged to it now. Years later, he died suddenly. Those who knew him said he had been fading long before, his eyes hollow, his voice cracked with terror. The basement pit is still there, hidden behind a locked gate, but no lock can keep it closed. People who peer inside describe a feeling of vertigo, as if staring into an endless void. Some have seen faces rise up in the black water, pale and twisted, mouths opening in silent screams. One woman fainted at the sight of it, waking to claw marks down her arms, deep and fresh, though she had been alone. Then there is the story of Pearl Bryan. In 1896, her body was found decapitated not far from the site, her head never recovered. Her murderers were hanged, but locals swore her spirit lingered, restless, searching for what was taken from her. Mediums who visited the bar claimed Pearl wanders to the basement, weeping softly, her dress soaked with blood. But not all the spirits there are victims. Some are not human at all. More than 11 people have been attacked. Patrons thrown downstairs by invisible hands, scratched across their backs, their skin burning with marks shaped like claws. Pregnant women report being shoved violently, as if something wanted to harm the child inside them. And those who mock the stories, those who laugh at the legends, often find themselves targeted the worst. One man spat into the pit, daring whatever lived there to show itself. That night, driving home, he lost control of his car. Witnesses said the steering wheel jerked violently on its own, pulling him into the ditch. He survived, but his arm was shattered. When he awoke in the hospital, deep scratches covered his chest, carved into his flesh like letters. Bobby Mackey himself, the owner, refuses to believe. He calls the Tailies superstition, but even he admits strange things happen. His wife once claimed she was pinned to the floor by something unseen, a pressure so strong she could not move, could not breathe. She said a voice whispered into her ear, low and guttural, "Get out." She never went into the basement again. The employees know better. Some refuse to go downstairs at all. They hear voices in the stairwell, sometimes crying, sometimes laughing, but always wrong echoes that slither into your bones. Others have seen figures moving across the dance floor after hours. Women in old-fashioned dresses, men with hollow faces, all dissolving into smoke when approached. There are nights when the music stops, when every bulb in the bar flickers out, plunging the place into suffocating dark. And in that dark, something moves. Heavy boots pacing across the floor, breath hot against your neck, a growl in the ear, deep and animalistic. And when the lights return, glasses are shattered, tables overturned, and people are left shaking, their clothes damp with cold sweat. Some say the bar itself is cursed, that the land was marked long before the walls were raised. A portal, a doorway, a wound that bleeds into hell. The basement pit is the heart of it. No matter how many times it is sealed, the air leaks from its sulfur, blood, rot. Demons do not need to walk through when the wound is already open. Visitors who leave often take the terror with them. They hear footsteps in their own homes, smell sulfur in their kitchens, wake in the night to find something pressing down on their chests. Dreams of the basement pit come again and again. Standing at the edge, hearing whispers rise from below, feeling hands reaching out, pulling them down into the black water. Some never return to the bar. Some never sleep in peace again, and those who do return are marked. Witnesses describe a Chenjai's hollow, skin pale, as if life is slowly drained. A few have even claimed to see horns in the shadows of their own reflections. One woman, after a second visit, clawed at her own skin, screaming that something was crawling beneath it. She died in the hospital days later, her body covered in scratches no one could explain. The bar still stands. Music still plays. People still dance and laugh, trying to ignore the weight in the air, the shadow in the corner, the faint smell of sulfur drifting from the basement door. But the truth remains, Bobby Mackey's music world is not just haunted. It is possessed. Something dark was born there. Something fed with blood and fear, and it will never leave. The jukebox will play by itself. The basement pit will whisper your name. And if you stay too long, if you dare to step into the darkness below, you may feel the icy fingers close around your throat, lifting you off the ground. You may hear the growl echo in your ear, and you will know, with your last desperate breath, that the demon of Bobby Mackey's has finally chosen you.